The rivalry between Women's World Champion Liv Morgan and Stephanie Vaquer has reached a point where the conversation is no longer just about championship ambitions or competitive trash talk. What began as a battle between two women with very different paths to the top has gradually become one of the most emotionally charged stories in the women's division. From the moment Morgan won the 2026 Women's Royal Rumble and made it clear that she wanted Vaquer's championship, the two have shown very little interest in finding common ground. Their personalities, careers, and ideas about what it takes to succeed in professional wrestling could hardly be more different, and that contrast has become the foundation of their rivalry. Morgan represents confidence, visibility, and the opportunities that come with establishing yourself inside WWE at a young age. Vaquer represents perseverance, experience, and the long road through independent and international wrestling. Put those two perspectives together, and it was almost inevitable that their rivalry would become deeply personal. What has made the situation especially compelling is the way both women have continued to challenge each other outside the ring, turning every interview, appearance, and social media exchange into another chapter of their ongoing battle. Two completely different roads. Stephanie Vaquer's story has always been built around persistence. Before reaching WWE, she spent years working throughout independent promotions and international territories, gaining experience in environments far removed from the spotlight of major television wrestling. That background became one of the most important parts of her identity when she finally reached WWE. Vaquer never viewed those years as something to hide. Instead, she presented them as proof that she had earned every opportunity that eventually came her way. Liv Morgan, meanwhile, entered WWE much earlier in her career and developed within the company's system, growing into one of its most recognizable stars. Neither path is inherently better than the other, but the difference between them has given both women plenty of ammunition. Vaquer has repeatedly questioned whether Morgan understands what it means to struggle for recognition, while Morgan has pushed back against the suggestion that success through WWE's system somehow makes her less deserving. That disagreement has transformed their championship rivalry into something bigger. They are not simply arguing about who deserves a title opportunity. They are arguing about what success in professional wrestling actually means. WrestleMania changes everything. Their confrontation eventually reached WrestleMania 42, where the stakes could not have been higher. Vaquer entered the match determined to defend the championship and prove that her years of experience had prepared her for exactly this kind of challenge. Morgan entered with the confidence of someone who believed the title belonged around her waist. The match became a defining moment for both careers, and Morgan ultimately walked away as the new Women's World Champion. Winning the championship should have settled at least some of the questions between them, but instead it intensified the rivalry. Vaquer was left with unfinished business, while Morgan suddenly had something even more important to protect. Every future interaction carried the same underlying question: could Vaquer take the championship back, or would Morgan establish herself as the dominant force of this era? That uncertainty has kept their feud alive long after WrestleMania. Instead of moving on to separate challenges, both women have continued circling one another, each determined to have the final word. Why fans are divided. The reaction has been anything but unanimous. Some fans believe Morgan is doing exactly what a confident heel or antagonistic champion should do, creating controversy, getting under Vaquer's skin, and making their eventual confrontation feel impossible to miss. Others believe there is a difference between effective wrestling trash talk and belittling somebody's career history. That debate is what has made this feud so interesting. Professional wrestling depends heavily on exaggeration, performance, and characters, but modern wrestlers also communicate directly with fans through social media. That means the boundary between storyline and personal commentary can sometimes become difficult to recognize. When a performer makes a controversial statement online, audiences immediately begin asking whether it was part of the character or something the person genuinely believes. In this case, Morgan's decision to stand behind her comments rather than immediately soften them only increased the discussion. Instead of ending the controversy, the response gave fans even more reason to examine every word being exchanged between the champion and her challenger. Vaquer refuses to back down. For her part, Vaquer has shown no intention of allowing Morgan to define the story. Her response has consistently centered on experience, perseverance, and the belief that her time away from WWE did not diminish her ability. In fact, Vaquer has argued the opposite, that stepping away and continuing to develop elsewhere made her more determined and more prepared when she returned. She has also reminded Morgan that championship reigns are ultimately judged by what happens in the ring. That message has resonated with supporters who believe Vaquer's strongest weapon is not an insult or a social media post, but her ability to compete. She does not need to erase Morgan's accomplishments to make her own case. She simply needs to prove that she can defeat the champion when the opportunity arrives. That is what gives the feud a strong competitive foundation beneath all the verbal conflict. Whatever the two women say online, eventually they will have to settle the argument where it matters most, inside the ring. Becky Lynch adds another layer. The timing becomes even more interesting with Becky Lynch returning to the picture. Lynch immediately adds another major personality to an already crowded championship scene, and her presence changes the balance of the division. Morgan can no longer focus exclusively on Vaquer, while Vaquer suddenly has another established name standing nearby with her own history and ambitions. Their interactions have created an atmosphere where almost anything could happen next. Instead of one straightforward rivalry, WWE now has several potential directions available. Morgan could continue defending her championship against Vaquer, Lynch could become involved in the title picture, or the three could find themselves competing for the same opportunity. That uncertainty is exactly what makes the current situation so compelling. Every confrontation feels like it could lead somewhere unexpected, and Morgan's position as champion puts even more pressure on her to prove that her confidence is justified. What happens next? Ultimately, the most important question is whether this rivalry can return to being about wrestling. Morgan and Vaquer clearly have plenty of reasons to dislike one another within the story, but the strongest version of their feud does not require either woman to attack the other's personal background. Their contrasting careers, championship ambitions, and completely different philosophies about success already provide enough material for a compelling rivalry. Morgan believes she has earned her place through everything she has accomplished since entering WWE. Vaquer believes her years of work before WWE gave her a perspective that cannot simply be dismissed. Those arguments are powerful because they are rooted in their characters and careers. The next stage should allow them to prove those beliefs through competition. Morgan has the championship and therefore has something to defend. Vaquer has the experience and determination to challenge her. With Lynch now entering the picture, the women's division has suddenly become even more unpredictable. The rivalry may have become heated, but the best way forward is clear. Let the words create anticipation, then let the wrestling provide the answer.